beating or not beating women, there are many men who agree that this is wrong, that this has been misinterpreted. So it's not just women talking about women. And
right.
The unfortunate point is that within the Middle East, there are many women who believe women should be beaten. So it's more like a human rights issue than a gender issue.
I totally get it. Thank you for addressing that.
Sure.
Now, you say that most Muslims have a preference for the Muhammad Assad Quran.
That and the Yusuf Ali, yes.
Explain this to us.
The reason why is because he has extensive footnotes.
Yeah.
And so does Yusuf Ali. They have extensive commentary, not only commentary in the translation, but also in the footnotes. And that's good, I mean, if you're interested in pursuing something further. But I found before I had the translation of the Sublime Quran available that I would get lost in the footnotes and I would forget what the Quran had said. You know, I'm so absorbed into, here's a number, I have to go and read this, and then back to the Quran, and I've lost my focus on the Quran. So I wanted to present a translation that didn't have any interpretation, that didn't have any footnotes, that was just straight the translation of the Quran, because I feel that people need to identify with it, and when you have all of these, and also because the Quran is eternal, so if it is eternal, it has to mean something to me today, not because of the history of it or the footnotes and so forth. Because also when you get so immersed in the footnotes, you begin, the Quran then begins to become a historic text rather than an eternal sacred text. And I didn't want that. I felt that people needed an alternative.
Interesting. What do you say about people who have read the original Quran, maybe the Muhammad Assad translation, and said it's very violent? There's a part of it that's very violent. Talk to us about that.
Well, that's, there are verses, but some of those are very specific to the time of the Prophet. And it's only in the Islamic tradition and based on the Quran, it's only someone can defend themselves. You cannot be the aggressor, because over and over again, God says that he does not love the ones who exceed their limits or who commit aggression. So if there's somebody who is taking one of the verses and using it to commit aggression against innocent people, well, that person has misread the translation of the Quran. I mean, they've been brainwashed into thinking a way that the Quran doesn't say. Most of them do not understand the meaning of the Quran. They've only memorized the Arabic of it, and many of them don't even speak Arabic, but they've memorized the Quran. So there are verses in the Quran that you can misinterpret, just like to beat women. I mean, that's a misinterpretation. So if you want, you can look at those and say, well, this is the way I understand it. But in the context of the whole of the Quran and the message of the Quran, those verses are only if somebody attacks you, then you have a right to defend yourself, but not that you can go and commit aggression against someone else.
Why do people say that there's parts of the original Quran that have to do with killing infidels and all that? Where does that come from? Now, I haven't read it, so I don't know.
Right. Well, there's a word in the Quran, it's called kafir, and that has most often been interpreted to mean a disbeliever or an infidel. But I found that exact same word, the very first understanding of it is to be ungrateful. So I have translated it in the Sublime Quran as being ungrateful to God. And in that way, we can all feel at some point in our lives that we forgot God, we were not grateful to him. And so it's not an insult to anybody. But for me to call someone an infidel or a disbeliever and to interpret that word that way, I feel goes against the meaning of that word and is not what Islam is all about. Because the Prophet didn't come to bring a new religion. He came to confirm the religions of the past. And to label someone and say, you're an infidel, therefore I can do what I want with you, is completely against the, understanding of the Quran. If that person were to say you're ungrateful to God, well, that's not something that you can kill somebody for. Because they're ungrateful to God, that's somebody you would admonish or counsel and so forth. But you certainly wouldn't go and kill them because they're ungrateful to God. So these are, there are places like that, and the people who are saying these things, most of them are just reading the translations like Muhammad Assad or Yusuf Ali, where, they're using the translation infidel or disbeliever. Now, that's an exclusive kind of understanding of the Quran, whereas mine is inclusive and tries to include all people within it rather than excluding people by labeling them and naming them this and that.
You've made several corrections to language that has been misunderstood or used improperly. Have you had any threats against your life for doing this?
No, I haven't, because I believe, first of all, because it's in English, and most of the people who are, on the borderline don't read English. They're just reading, they're in their own languages, Urdu or Punjabi or, Dari of Afghanistan or Arabic, and so they're not really aware of it. But the other reason is because I say I'm a believer, and I am a believer. So they're not able to do the same to someone who is a believer as they are to someone who steps outside the faith and says, I'm no longer a believer, I hate this faith, and this is ridiculous, and so forth and so on. So when you do that, then you kind of challenge the other people to become antagonistic towards you. But there have been places which have refused to carry, Islamic bookstores that have refused to carry the Sublime Quran, by completely ignoring it or announcing that they're not going to carry this book in their bookstore because they do feel that husbands are able to beat their wives, or that the people who are not believers then are infidels.
What are your plans for the Sublime Quran relative to making it available in Arabic directly?
Well, the Arabic is available. It's because the word didn't change. It's just the understanding of that word and the reason why that word has, the word is daraba, which is the word used to mean beat, and that has 26 meanings. So it needs to be an explanation in an introduction rather than actually the Arabic. So that introduction needs to be translated into Arabic and then presented to different, Arabic-speaking communities, for them to be able to understand the logic behind why this has been misinterpreted. But it wouldn't be within the Arabic. But we are working on an Urdu translation where there, instead of saying beat them, it will say go away from them in Urdu language.
Urdu is a beautiful language.
Yes.
Do you speak it?
No, I don't. But I hear it all the time. Because here at Qazi Publications, it was founded by Pakistani. So they're all speaking Urdu all the time.
Wow, very beautiful language.
Yeah.
You said also Muslims do not have a monopoly on the word Allah.
Yes.
You said Arabic-speaking Christians and Jews also refer to God as Allah. Now, where did you find that?
Yeah, no, if you read the Torah may be in Hebrew, but it's also, if it's translated into other languages, for instance, into Arabic, for the word God, which I believe would appear in there, they use the word Allah. And it's certainly in the New Testament, they use the word Allah. So, and in their conversations, they use the words Allah. There is, I understand, the Jewish tradition, the Orthodox don't say the word God. They
right.
put a dash there.
Right.
But in the other traditions, Jewish tradition, they do, I believe, say God, the word God, or in Hebrew, Yahweh, and Jehovah.
Right.
But wherever it is, they, in their language and in their conversations, in their prayers, they do use the word Allah in Arabic.
Interesting. I wonder if that's a translation for that community. Do you know what I'm saying?
It is, because that's the Arabic word for God.
Got it.
So, but that's why it shouldn't be transferred into English. It's very important that Muslims use the word God in English and not the word Allah. Because that, again, it makes, an exclusive issue, that I'm better than you because my God's named Allah and yours is named God, for instance.
I get it.
And so that's not the way it is. They feel that they're being very pious by using the word Allah, but they don't recognize that they're alienating people by doing that, because so many places you go and speak and they say, well, I don't understand your religion. You have a different God. His name's Allah, and I don't understand that, and so forth. so it's creating misunderstanding and